رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما ولي الله الحجة ابن الحسن صاحب الأمر والزمان. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين، آمين رب العالمين. أما بعد، قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. صدق الله العلي العظيم وآمنا به. زينوا مجالسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد. To begin with, Ahibai, I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your schedule to uphold the dhikrah and revive the tragedy of the martyrdom of Maulana Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. And you would think that this is something that is badihi. This is something to revive the dhikr of Imam al-Kadhim or any one of the Ahlul Bayt is something which is straightforward, and indeed something ajib or strange to be thanked for attending a majlis azah. But the reality of the matter is, Ya Ahibai, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim is an Imam who is underappreciated, lived by the outside world, but by those who claim to be his followers. And it is of utmost importance that the dhikr of Imam al-Kadhim is held in the highest glory and grandeur, with as much ilm and as much emotion, because history worked hard to obliterate the dhikr of Imam al-Kadhim. And it is a nation as pure and people as pure like yourselves, selected by Allah Azza wa Jal, who ensure that despite the efforts of history to obliterate the dhikr of Imam al-Kadhim, mu'mineen and mu'minat like yourselves are here to ensure that the words of this eternal Imam shall echo from the east to the west of this earth until the dhuhur of the awaited Imam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. For it is important for us to understand the weight of these majalis which we attend. Ahibai, tonight's lecture, in essence, is a continuation of a three-part series in which, alhamdulillah wa shukr, there was Tawfiq, brothers, mu'mineen from London had organized a two-part majlis for Imam al-Kadhim, and the Tawfiq is today would be the third one. Imam al-Husayn, Imam Husayn TV3 has been broadcasting these lectures for those of you who would want to follow the first two series. Tab'an, I'd like to thank the channel for giving the opportunity to broadcast. I believe today's program as well is being broadcasted. They play an important role in ensuring the message of Ahlul Bayt has been spread. And at the same time, I'd like to extend my gratitude to my very dear brother, and the reciter Khadim Ahlul Bayt, Abbas Tijani, for organizing this majlis and going through all the difficulties and the pains of putting together a program in honor of Imam al-Kadhim. And I pray to Allah Azza wa Jal, by the sake of Imam al-Kadhim, for those brothers and sisters who have got together to organize this majlis, who are attending this majlis, participating in this majlis, by the sake of Imam al-Kadhim, inshaAllah, may all your hajat be accepted, inshaAllah. May you be protected from every type of su and bala, inshaAllah. And may Imam al-Kadhim grant us the honor to perform his ziyarah in the dunya and gain his shafa'ah in the akhirah with the barakat of as-salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. To give you a quick summary so we can move on, and inshallah there is benefit inside of the discussion and the bahath. A number of muqaddimat, a number of introductions, a quick summary of what has been discussed over the last two nights, and we delve into tonight's topic. I'tiqadat. Usuluddin, and your belief system in these 5 principles determines your fate in the dunya as well as in the akhirah. Tawheed, Adala, Nabuwa, Imama, and Ma'ad. And I believe we spoke about this in one of the previous lectures here in Leicester, Husayniyya Mubarakah. Within this i'tiqadat, this belief system, we need to be firmly grounded within Usuluddin in order to have a chance to be from amongst those 313. And underneath those 313, there is a general army of tens and tens of thousands. There's a difference between the Ansar of the awaited Imam and the Ashab of the awaited Imam. They have darajat. Whether you aspire to be from the 313 or those under the 313, Ya Ahibba'i, your only standing chance to qualify is that your Usuluddin is on point. And you firmly believe in these principles. You have a look at the companions of every one of the Imams from Ahlul Bayt. From Rasulullah starting, Rasulullah to Amirul Mu'mineen, all the way down to Imam al-Askari. Refer back to the books of Tariq. You will find that the distinguishing point of the ashab of these Imams is that they were firmly grounded inside of their Usuluddin. You don't have to look far, look at Karbala. The likes of Habib and the likes of Abbas. Men who were grounded in their Usuluddin, who would not budge in their faith system for the blink of an eye, even if it cost them their lives and the lives of their loved ones. Taban, there is always this misconception that to be staunch and to be firm in your faith means that you are not flexible, or that you end up being violent, or that you cannot coexist. Abadan la. These are misunderstandings. There is a balance between coexistence. There is a balance between harmony and brotherhood that needs to be achieved without doubt, but not at the expense of Aqidah and Usuluddin. فَإِحْنَا, we are on a journey. This journey which has no defined time. The dhuhur, like the dhuhur of the Imam, like death, maut, undefined. Until you don't know when death will catch up with you. And similarly, you don't know when the dhuhur of the Imam is going to happen. There are signs that are mahtum and ghair mahtum. But even from the signs that are mahtum, they can occur in the blink of an eye, and a person in ghafla misses that opportunity. For the goal is that as you travel on this journey and you strive to be ready for the zuhur of the Imam, the main objective is that your faith system is on point. And this starting point is ilm. The life choices that you make, what defines right and wrong, all boils down to this faith system. And within this Usuluddin faith system, you have the concept of imamah and you have the concept of nabuwah. High introduction, muqaddimah, moving on. Within Usuluddin, you have the concept of imamah and nabuwah. And you find that inside this system of nabuwah and imamah, there is darajat. There are levels. Levels which distinguish some anbiya from the others. Levels that distinguish some of the imams from the others. Levels that distinguish the imams from the anbiya. Regardless of whether it is a Nabi or an Imam, they have one thing in common. They are selected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, they are the representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth. Their functions are different, but in essence, an Imam and a Nabi are both representatives of God, selected by God. And the core function is to guide humanity towards haqq. This is the common denominator between the Nabi and the Imam. Which is why when you refer to the classical books of theology taught within the Hawza Ilmiya, you will find that under the chapter of Imamah, the fundamental proof, intellectual, non-textual proof that is used to establish the validity of Imamah are the same proofs that are used to establish the validity and the necessity of Nabuwah. The proof that is used for Imamah is used to establish the proof of Nabuwah. Why? On the basis of this one common denominator, that they are both representatives of Allah. Introduction number 2. Moving on, if we understand that the Nabi and the Imam are both representatives sent by Allah, the Nabi Anbiya have darajat. This is why you have the Ulul Azam. Some have a higher daraja than the rest of the Anbiya. The Ulul Azam are on a higher pedestal than the rest of the Anbiya. And on top of the Ulul Azam, you have Khatamul Anbiya. So, just like the way the Anbiya have darajat, our goal to understand from Babul I'tiqadat in terms of Usuluddin is that from amongst these representatives of Allah Azza wa Jal, you understand the value of the individual whose majlis you have come to today. Is the position of an Imam greater, or is the position of a Nabi greater? Both of them are representatives of Allah. But whose daraja is higher? The daraja of a Nabi or the daraja of an Imam? And tab'an, this has been a point where from within the school of tashayyu', there are those who don't understand this concept in the right manner. And then you have from the outside where attacks are made that if you were to say that the Imam is higher than the Nabi, then this is a form of ghulu. It doesn't fit the definition of ghulu, by the way, but this is a debate for another time. Tayyib. So when we are trying to understand the position of Imamah, which is a central position of your Usuluddin, is the position of Imamah higher than Nabuwah or lower than Nabuwah, with the exception of Rasulullah? Where is the position of Imamah? With every school of thought having different opinions, and within Tashayyu itself, different people having different opinions, we say that the first point of reference, the first point of return is the Quran. Inni tarikun fikum thiklain, kitabullahi wa itrati ahla bayti. For we refer back to the Quran to understand the darajat of the Anbiya and the darajat of the A'imma. Is there any to Muslims who would doubt when it comes to the Quran. So, when it comes to understanding your faith system, we refer back to Surah Al-Baqarah verse number 124. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَإِذَا ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنْ. When your Lord tested Ibrahim, when your Lord put Ibrahim through an imtihan that was so shadeed, that was so intense, and Ibrahim passed this imtihan of Allah, look at what the verse says. قَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. You refer back to the Mufassirin of the Quran from the Ammah as well as the Khassa, Shia and non-Shia. Mufassirin of the Quran are unanimous on the fact that Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad Habibi Sheikhuna. Mufassirin from the Ammah and the Khassa are unanimous on the fact that this verse was revealed in honor of Nabi Ibrahim towards the end of his life. This is after he passed the sacrifice, the test of the sacrifice of Nabi Ismail. Nabi Ibrahim was blessed with a son towards the end of his life. And towards the end of his life, he passed this imtihan. So Allah is saying, because you passed this imtihan, which was so difficult, your reward or your compensation is that inni wadifa atammahun. Qala, verse number 134. Qala inni ja'iluka linnasi imama. Allah says, because you have passed this imtihan, I now shall make you for the people an imam. Ajib. Nabi Ibrahim was a Nabi. Nabi Ibrahim was already a prophet of Allah. He had been a prophet of Allah teaching Tawheed for all these years. At the end of his life, when he passed through the most severe imtihan by Allah, Allah raised his daraja and made him an imam. Yani the position of imamah over the position of nabuwah. This is from the Quran. Mu kalami. The word of Allah Azza wa Jal. For you understand over here, Habibi, we are not trying to put down the position of nabuwah and play down the importance of the anbiya. La, abadan la, abadan la. What we're trying to do is understand the azamah of the imams of Ahlul Bayt, the azamah of the a'immah, and in particular the azamah of this imam whose majlis you are sitting on today. This farshe azah of Imam al-Kadhim that you are sitting on, in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his daraja is higher than the daraja of Ibrahim. I build Quran, we have to value these majalis that we are sitting in. Tayyib. For the position of imamah, as per the Quran, is established to be a position more grander than the position of nabuwah, which is why you have all the hadith that on the night of Mi'raj, and inshallah we are at the footsteps or at the doorstep of Mi'raj, that when Rasulullah was raised to the heavens and he recited the salat behind all of the anbiya, and Jibreel said to Rasulullah, ask the anbiya on what basis were they made anbiya, on what basis were they selected to be prophets. And Rasulullah asked Nabiullah Ibrahim, and Nabiullah Ibrahim says that none of us, ma'ashar al-anbiya, none of us were chosen to be prophets, except that in that alam in nur, we attested to the wahdaniyah of Allah Azza wa Jal, to your nabuwa ya Rasulullah, and to the wasiyah of Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If we understand this, introduction number 2. If we understand this, we come to tonight's bahath. The topic being a comparison between two individuals, God-sent individuals, who no other person in history has been imprisoned in the same way that these two people were imprisoned. One of them, Nabiullah Yusuf, and the other one, Maulana Imam al-Kadhim. For you have two God-sent people whose lives were marked by a period of imprisonment. So in order to understand the imprisonment of Imam al-Kadhim, we want to compare the circumstances, the mukarana, to make a comparison between the circumstances of the imprisonment of Nabi Yusuf and the imprisonment of Imam al-Kadhim. And from these two comparisons, you are able to see whose imprisonment was more intense, whose imprisonment was more chastising. Was it that of Imam al-Kadhim or was that of Nabi Yusuf? Further than that, what you are able to do is, you are able to see the reflection of Imam al-Kadhim through the verses of the Quran that were revealed for Nabi Yusuf. Allahu Akbar. Allah Azza wa Jal, when He narrates the stories of the Anbiya of the past within the Quran, number one, it's for us to take lessons. Number two, it's for us to understand those Anbiya of the past. But number three, it is those stories of the Anbiya of the past is placed or revealed within the Quran such that we can understand Ahlul Bayt through them. And it is as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed the incidents of Nabi Yusuf within the Quran such that you can understand Imam al-Kadhim through Nabi Yusuf's incident. Such that when the Muslimin read Surah Yusuf and read the story of the imprisonment of Nabi Yusuf, they are able to relate it to their time, and they say, like the way there was the Yusuf, the son of Yaqub, who was imprisoned. In our time, in our belief, we have the Yusuf of Ali Mohammed, who was also imprisoned. And this is what is maqsood. You begin to understand the Quran in an absolutely different light, a light that you never imagined would strike your heart. For we begin this journey of this comparison and understanding the circumstances of the imprisonment of Nabiullah Yusuf and Imam al-Kadhim. To summarize, over the last 2 nights, we said there are certain aspects that are mushtarakat, that are common denominators, and some that are khas, that show the afdaliyah of Nabi Musa over Nabi Yusuf. Number one, Nabi Yusuf was a subject or was the victim of hate from his own family members. The ones to throw him into the well were none other than his brothers. They were jealous. So Nabi Yusuf was a victim of hate and persecution from his own family members. And the same thing applies to Imam al-Kadhim. Imam al-Kadhim was a victim of hate and a victim of persecution by his own relatives. Bani Abbas minhu. Bani Abbas is that lineage that came from Abbas, the uncle of Rasulullah. And they thought that they have a claim to Khilafah based on their proximity towards Rasulullah. In fact, Bani Abbas, when they came into power and they overthrew Bani Umayyah, they came into power under the pretext and the slogan, Ya li tharatil Husayn. We have come to take vengeance for Imam al-Husayn. They milked the concept of Imam al-Husayn to forward their own political agenda. They came into power. Sounds familiar? They came into power. And what did they do? Persecuted the same children of Hassan and Husayn, who they claimed they have come to seek vengeance for. For Imam al-Kadhim, like Nabi Yusuf, was a subject of hate and persecution from his own family members. This is number one. Number two, we said that Allah Azza wa Jal in Surah Yusuf introduces Nabi Yusuf with one particular sifat, one particular khususiyah. And that is that Allah gifted Nabi Yusuf the ilm of interpreting dreams, the science of interpreting dreams. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces Nabi Yusuf. You read in the beginning 10, 12 verses of Surah Al-Yusuf. This is in the last two lectures. So Allah describes or introduces Nabi Yusuf through this khususiyah, that he's been given ilm to interpret dreams. But on the other hand, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces Ahlul Bayt within the Quran, and in particular in Surah Al-Yasin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَحْسَيْنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. He says, Mufassirin, again, Amma Khasa, Yanabi ul-Mawadda, if you refer back to Al-Kunduz, Sulaiman Kunduzi al-Hanafi, the author of Yanabi ul-Mawadda, he says this verse was revealed in honor of Amirul Mu'mineen. So when Ahlul Bayt and Imam al-Kadhim, who is the successor of Amirul Mu'mineen, is introduced in the Quran, Allah introduces them as having ilm of everything. Nabi Yusuf is introduced as having ilm of something partial. But when it came to Ahlul Bayt, Allah introduced them as having ilm of everything. Alright, this is number 2. Number 3, we drew a comparison between the circumstances of the imprisonment between Nabi Yusuf and Imam al-Kadhim. See, there is a difference. Nabi Yusuf, when he was thrown into the well by his brothers, and this is from Surah Al-Yusuf, one of the brothers said, La taqtulu Yusuf. Do not kill Yusuf. When they were conspiring what to do and how to get rid of him, they said, let's throw him in the well. But when they threw him in the well, one of the brothers said, be careful, don't kill him. We want to get rid of him, but we don't want to kill him. It's mentioned in the Quran. La taqtulu Yusuf. Meaning what? That those people who subjected Nabi Yusuf to persecution, they still had an ounce of mercy in their hearts. They knew what they were doing is wrong. They did the wrong action, bila shakkin wala raib. But they still had an ounce of mercy inside of their hearts. They said, whatever you do to him, abandon him inside the well, but don't kill him. The people responsible for the persecution of Yusuf had an ounce of mercy. But what about the people who were responsible for the persecution of Imam al-Kadhim? Did they have an ounce of mercy in their hearts? Abadan la. They fed Imam al-Kadhim stale bread and stale water. For close to 20 years, a single piece of stale bread and a single glass of water while he was imprisoned in those God-forsaken dungeons. To the extent that at one time, when Imam al-Kadhim is in a state of sujood, the prison guard watching from the top, 2 prison guards standing together. One prison guard says to the other, what do you see inside of the jail? He says, he looks down into the dungeon. He says, I see nothing except that maybe 2 or 3 clothes are piled on top of each other. He says to him, look again. He says, I cannot see except 2 or 3 clothes piled over each other. The first prison guard says to the second one, you are mistaken. Those are not piles of clothes. That is Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim in a state of sujood. Have you seen a person in a state of sajda? Such that he looks like it's a clump of clothes over each other. Where is the imprisonment of Nabi Yusuf? And where is the imprisonment of Imam al-Kadhim? Allah praises Nabi Yusuf for what he endured within the Quran. And his position is elevated because of what he endured within the Quran. If Nabi Yusuf is praised for this, then what do you think the position of Imam al-Kadhim is, who endured much more than what Yusuf endured? Ba'ad, Zulaykha. When Zulaykha tried to seduce Nabi Yusuf, and the Aziz, the husband of Zulaykha, came into the room and she tore his shirt from the back, and inshallah you all know the story. What happened? She tried to protect herself. And what did she suggest to Aziz? She said to Aziz, This person tried to violate my honor. And because he tried to violate my honor, she said, "Illa an yusjan aw yu'dhab adaban alima." She said to Aziz, because he tried to violate my rights and my sanctity and my honor, Ya Aziz, you should imprison him, or you should subject him to torture. Nabi Yusuf was imprisoned because of Zulaykha. She tried to approach him, he refused. Aziz of Misr walked into the room. She accused Yusuf of attempting fornication, and as a result, Zulaykha herself suggested or insisted that the Aziz should imprison Yusuf, and this is why Yusuf was imprisoned. The one who caused the imprisonment of Yusuf, Zulaykha, when she had a grudge against Yusuf, Sahilola. As a result of this, she got him imprisoned. But Zulaykha had humanity inside of her. Zulaykha had decency inside of her. She had a grudge against Yusuf. So when she asked for retribution, she asked that that retribution should be restricted to Yusuf and Yusuf only. Illa ayyusjan. He is the one who's got a problem. I have a problem with him. My issue is with him. And hence, the imprisonment is restricted to him. But when you come to the issue of Imam al-Kadhim, Harun al-Abbasi and Bani Abbas, when they had a problem with Imam al-Kadhim, did they restrict their retribution to Imam al-Kadhim? La! They removed, then they executed their vengeance and their hate not only on Imam al-Kadhim, but on all the Sada, the children of Hassan and Husayn living at the time of Imam al-Kadhim. Zulaykha never said, because Yusuf refused to fulfill my desires, arrest his brothers and his fathers and punish them, all of them together. She could have said this if she really wanted to take vengeance. She could have. Is there anyone stopping her? Law. She said law. Yusuf or Yusuf won. She had some principle. But when it came to Bani Abbas, they didn't have principle. To seek revenge on Imam al-Kadhim, they would destroy anyone and everyone around Imam al-Kadhim. To the extent that when the palaces in Baghdad was being built and the borders gates of Baghdad were being constructed, historians mention Sada, the Sadat, lineage of Hassan and the Husayn. They would be arrested based on their lineage. Brothers, if you are looking for definitions of mass genocide, look no further than the Tariq of Imam al-Kadhim. Understand the price at which this deen has come to us. They say to us we are crazy and inflexible because we are staunch in our deen. Understand what this deen has gone through in order for you and I to benefit from. They would arrest the Sada based on their identity, regardless of age and regardless of gender. Mass arrests, they would tie them by their hands and their legs, and they would throw them between the cement walls and cement them alive till death. Suffocate. A big part of the walls and the palaces of Baghdad were constructed, and between the walls there were lines of dead people who have been buried alive, cemented alive. These are the children of Hassan and the Husayn. Their vengeance against Imam al-Kadhim was not restricted to Imam al-Kadhim, but anyone associated to him. Look at the companions of Imam al-Kadhim in the way that they were persecuted. And before that, Amirul Mu'mineen and Imam al-Mujtaba and so on and so forth. And now we have a responsibility. The manner in which this deen has come to us. You could not even dare to say the name Ali in public, because that in itself was execution. Today, Ahibai, we live in a golden age. And Sahih bila shakkin wala rayb. There are Shia executions in many parts of the world. And every drop of blood is muqaddas, huh? But at the same time, you are experiencing a level of freedom and a level of communication that no Shia generation before you has ever enjoyed. Muhammad ibn Abu Umair, when he died, the companion of Imam as-Sadiq, when he died, he had to bury his books in the earth. Because if they were found, they would be destroyed and his family would have been wiped out from the face of this earth. To say Ali was a crime where you're punished by death. Today you say Aliyun Waliyullah from the Adhan. Today you have Aliyun Waliyullah on social media. Today you can put the message of Imam al-Husayn on satellite TV. Today nobody restricts you in spreading the message. And we're not talking about manners in which, within protocol, in the manner of Ahlul Bayt, academia, and so on and so forth. Dalil al-Burhan wadih. This is an opportunity for us. How many of the Muslim world and Shia world know these days of tragedy of Imam al-Kadhim? Ziyara millioniyah, we have the way they say. Millions of people will be going to Kadhim, and we have our brother, blessed brother, who has just come back from Kadhim. He will attest for you. Going to commemorate the istishhad of Imam al-Kadhim. Zalzala should be on earth. Where are we? We're still stuck in this. Forgive my language. Nani wafat, moti wafat. Sahilola. Aib on us. Not on those who don't believe. On us. This Imam whose reflection is in Suratul Yusuf. Is in the reflection in the seerah of Nabi Yusuf. But much more intense than Nabi Yusuf. And hitchy we are. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Majority of the time has gone in the introduction from what was in the last 2 nights, and we still have today's part to go. Ya Allah. For these are the mushtarakat. The imprisonment of Imam al-Kadhim and the circumstances of the imprisonment of Imam al-Kadhim was more intense than the circumstances that led to the imprisonment of Nabi Yusuf. The ilm of Nabi Yusuf mentioned in the Quran was particular, partial. The ilm of Imam al-Kadhim mentioned within the Quran is all-encompassing. And both of them were persecuted by their family members. We move on for today's. Mushtarakat, commonalities or similarities between the situation of Nabi Yusuf and Imam al-Kadhim. You find over here, again, the references that we're using Suratul Yusuf. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is verse number 16. وَجَاءُوا آبَاءَهُمْ عِشَاءً يَبْكُونَ. When the brothers threw Nabi Yusuf inside of the well, they came back home. And when they came back home, they fabricated a story. They tore the shirt of Nabi Yusuf. They killed the wolf, or they killed the sheep. And what did they do? They put the shirt of Nabi Yusuf on the sheep. When they came back home, they said to their father, Nabi Yaqub, that Yusuf was devoured by a wolf. Tayyib. Who is responsible for throwing Nabi Yusuf in the well? The brothers. The brothers have done an act which is wrong. And the brothers know that what they have done was wrong. They know that they have committed a sin. Sahih Lola. They know in their hearts when they're going back home that they are lying to their father. They know deep inside their heart that what they have done is wrong. They know deep inside their heart that what they have done is dhulm. Despite that, what did they do? When they went back home in the night, the Quran says, وَجَاءُوا آبَاهُمْ إِشَاءً يَبْكُونَ. They went home crying, pretending that they are victims as well. So the zalim, this is the point of the story. The brothers who were oppressors committed a crime. They knew they were wrong, but they pretended that they have not done anything wrong. They tried to prove their innocence by shedding crocodile tears. See, it is one thing when a person is wrong and admits that he's wrong. But it's another thing when a person does something wrong and then fabricates 20 other lies to try and cover up that lie. Sah? The same thing when it comes to Imam al-Kadhim. In the same way that his brothers tried to fabricate the death of Yusuf and wash their hands from this sin and prove their innocence to their father, the same exact thing happened to Imam al-Kadhim. Because the historians mention that as soon as Harun al-Abbasi administered the poison to Imam al-Kadhim, it so happened that the social political situation of the Shias inside of Baghdad was beginning to rupture like a volcano that was about to evolve. The Shia have been without their Imam for almost 20 years, and there was this contingency of the followers of Imam al-Kadhim who were being pushed to the wall and were about to rise in revolution because they couldn't take it anymore. So Harun poisoned Imam al-Kadhim. When they poisoned Imam al-Kadhim, they brought his body, his janaza out to the tabut, to the bridge of Baghdad. What did Harun do? Refer back to the books of history. He brought 15 of the most learned professionals within the medical field, the most learned doctors, brought them out on the bridge of Baghdad. In a public ceremony, there was an interrogation. You as medical professionals, can you tell us how Musa ibn Ja'far died? These were doctors who were paid, and they all came out in a public seminar or in a public rally and said, according to us, Musa ibn Ja'far has died a normal death. Harun tried to cover up his part in poisoning Imam al-Kadhim by hiring doctors to fake what you would say in today's day and age, death report. So just like the way those who were responsible for throwing Yusuf into the well, they knew what they did was wrong, they tried to cover their actions, the same when it came to Imam al-Kadhim. But whose crime was worse, the brothers of Yusuf or Bani Abbas and what they did to Imam al-Kadhim? This is one. Number two. Nabi Yusuf used to do tabligh inside of the prison. When he was in prison, the other prisoners who are with him for all other minor demeanors, this and that, Nabi Yusuf would do tabligh to them. He would guide them to the right path, invite them towards Tawheed. You look towards verse number 37 onwards in Surah Al-Yusuf, where Nabi Yusuf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the conversations that Yusuf would have with the rest of the prisoners. He would say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inni taraktu millata qawmin la yu'minuna billah wa hum bil akhirati hum kafirun. These are examples of the messages that Nabi Yusuf would give to the prisoners. He said, listen, I'm a different person. I'm not like you lot. I do not believe in your religion. Inni taraktu millata qawmin la yu'minuna billah. I am not part of your religion, does not believe in Allah and believe in the akhirah. Indeed, they are disbelievers. So Nabi Yusuf, through his conversations, through his debates, would guide the people in the prison towards the true path of Tawheed. And in the same manner, anyone who came into contact with Imam al-Kadhim within the prison ended up becoming a Shia of Imam al-Kadhim. Over here, anyone who came into contact with Nabi Yusuf became a monotheist, became a Muslim believer. But anyone who came into contact with Imam al-Kadhim didn't become a Muslim, became a mu'min. Whose daraja is higher, a Muslim or a mu'min? Mu'min tab'an. We have one incident that is mentioned in the books of Tariq, that Harun used to have a troupe of 4,000 dancers, female dancers, personal entertainers, 4,000 of them. This is for his own personal entertainment, but paid by the Baytul Mal. He decides on one night that I'm going to corrupt Musa ibn Ja'far. He claims to be a person of piety, claims to be a person of Iman and Taqwa. Yeah, Taqwa, we'll see. From these troops of 4,000 dancers, private dancers, He went and selected, Harun himself selected the most beautiful of women from the dancers. They came and they prepared her and they scented her and ma'adrishu, her clothing and whatever provocative whatnot. And they sent her to the prison. You know, Imam al-Kadhim was subject to multiple prisons over 20 odd years. He was imprisoned multiple times inside of Basra, and not in one prison, multiple prisons in Basra, and then inside of Baghdad, and within Baghdad, multiple prisons in Baghdad. The last prison was the prison of Sindhi, Sahak bin Sindhi al-La'in, in which there was a ta'mura. Ta'mura, yani a hole that is dug within an underground dungeon, close to about 14 or 15 feet underneath the earth. A hole that is so tiny in terms of its height and in terms of its width. When you look at the description of the hadith, if you were to interpret it in today's day and age, it's what you find the military forces use for prisoners of war, a tactic that is called stress position. Have you seen when you want to force out a conviction from a prisoner, you put them in stress position? Which means what? You are in one stationary position, either standing, squatting, upside down, ma'adri shu, but one position for an extended period of time, such that your muscles in the body begin to cramp up. And because your muscles are cramped to such an intense position, your mind loses its ability to think in the right way. And slowly by slowly, at the same time, if the place is constrained, the lack of oxygen gets to you. Imam al-Kadhim was subject to this within the Tamura. Historians say, at one time, Imam al-Kadhim himself says, he says, I tried to raise myself from the Tamura. Allah, Allah, Allah. Imam, you know when Imam al-Kadhim says, I tried to raise myself. When you understand this, this means that his body was cramped up in such a manner, he was almost paralyzed. He couldn't move. Which is why he says, I tried to come up. When he tried to come up, he says, I tried to come up to get fresh breath. He says, when I put my head towards the top of the underground dungeon to get a grasp of fresh air, he says, one of the prison guards of Harun was there. As soon as he saw my head, he kicked me across my chest. Imam al-Kadhim in multiple prisons. One of these prisons in Basra. So as we were saying, they dressed up the woman and they brought her inside the prison to seduce Imam al-Kadhim. They left her with Imam al-Kadhim in a prison by themselves the entire night. The next morning they called the woman. What was the natija? Were you able to seduce Imam al-Kadhim? What were you able to do? She goes back to Harun and she says, you sent me to the most pious man on earth, who has made me to discover a reality that I never ever thought of or believed in before. He said, and what reality is this? She said, Subbuhun Quddusun Rabbul Malaikati wal Ard. Imam al-Kadhim, by her looking at the ibadah and the haiba and the taqwa of Imam al-Kadhim made her a mu'minah in a single night within the jail. In the same way, Nabi Yusuf was converting people towards Tawheed. Anyone who came into contact with Imam al-Kadhim inside of the prison ended up becoming a mu'minah or a mu'min. Which is why Harun saw the existence of Imam al-Kadhim, despite being in solitary confinement inside of jail, is a threat to the empire. But one more just to add on to this. Nabi Yusuf, when he was in prison and he was talking to the other prisoners and converting them to Islam, these were prisoners who were normal people. They didn't have any hatred towards Nabi Yusuf. Did they have personal hatred towards Nabi Yusuf? No. Each one is in a jail because of their own minor misdemeanors that they have performed. And the Nabi Yusuf is over here accused of fornication. So the people that Nabi Yusuf was converting were normal, you could say everyday Dow Jones, who had no grudge against Nabi Yusuf per se. So to be able to convert somebody who is neutral, Use the word neutral. To convert somebody who is neutral or to invite somebody who is neutral towards Islam is simpler compared to inviting somebody towards the right path who is already muta'assib. Sahih Lola. You find Nabi Yusuf converted neutral people. Imam al-Kadhim converted people who were nasibi to the bone. Yani, you can imagine staunch Wahhabis, willing to kill you. They spend time with Imam al-Kadhim, they come out kissing the hand of Imam al-Kadhim. Whose athar and haiba is greater? Nabi Yusuf lo Imam al-Kadhim. Imam al-Kadhim taban. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Tayyib, you find that another comparison, and perhaps this is the last one before we go into the Na'i. Comparison between the ilm of Nabi Yusuf and the ilm of Imam al-Kadhim. Nabi Yusuf was blessed with the knowledge, we said, of interpreting dreams. You see verse number 43 within the Quran, Surah Yusuf. وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُ إِنِّي أَرَى سَبْعَ بَقَرَاتٍ سِمَانٍ يَأْكُلُهُنَّ سَبْعٌ عِجَافٌ وَكَذَا until the end of the verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the Aziz, the king of Egypt, saw in a dream 7 fat cows being devoured by 7 thin cows and 7 grains of rice with other 7 grains of rice. He asked, what is the interpretation of this dream? Nabi Yusuf was called, and Nabi Yusuf predicted that the dream means there is a looming drought that is going to come. Sahih Lola. This means what? This means that Nabi Yusuf was able to tell and educate the people of the ilmul ghaib. Ilmul ghaib, of the unseen. Ilm of the future. Tayyib. The ilm of the future that was granted to Nabi Yusuf, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions within the Quran and praises over here as an incident in particular, is an incident that was maybe 70 years ahead. For a restricted period of time, Nabi Yusuf was able to prepare the people for a coming tragedy. When he warned them about the drought, the next logical thing to do was to prepare accordingly and survive the drought. So Nabi Yusuf was preparing the people for a looming tragedy that was going to come. And this is ilmul ghaib given to him by Allah. In the same way, Imam al-Kadhim from the prisons was giving people pieces of ilmul ghaib that would prepare them for a tragedy which is about to come, whose consequences are much greater than the drought of Nabi Yusuf. Do you know what that was? Ilmul ghaib, and preparing the people about the ghaiba of Maulana Sahib al-Amri wa Zaman. Nabi Yusuf says to the people, beware, there's a drought coming. Baba, if you don't take care of the drought, you are all going to perish. Over here, Imam al-Kadhim says, there is a ghaiba coming. If you don't take care in this ghaiba, you will perish. What death is worse? To perish by physical droughts or to perish with an aqidah that is destroyed? So whose guidance has more weight? Hadith al-Sharif in Kitab al-Kafi. Look at what Imam al-Kadhim says, and we end with this. إِنَّهُ لَا بُدَّ لِصَاحِبِ هَذَا الْأَمْرِ. Imam al-Kadhim is talking. What is in the back of my mind is with his son Imam Rida. إِنَّهُ لَا بُدَّ لِصَاحِبِ هَذَا الْأَمْرِ مِنْ غَيْبَةٍ. Indeed, the Sahib al-Amr, the one who's going to save humanity, there is going to be an occultation for him. Ghaiba. Listen to these words carefully. حتى يرجع عن هذا الأمر من كان يقول به. There is going to be a looming ghaiba, And the reappearance, occultation, this reappearance shall not happen until there are those who were initially professing and calling out and believing in the Mahdi until they themselves turn back and abandon this faith. Abandon the belief in the Mahdi. Who believes in the Mahdi in this day and age? Yani Mahdi be the son of Imam Hassan al-Askari. The Shia. Sahih Lola. Is there any other sect that believes that they await? Everybody believes in an awaited Mahdi. And everybody has differences on who the identity of that Mahdi is. But apart from Shia Ithna Ashari, there is no other belief. There is no other sect that believes that the awaited Mahdi is the son of Hassan al-Askari. So what we understand is from this hadith, Imam al-Kadhim is talking about the Shia. There is going to come a time where on this mimbar you are going to have Shias who are going to negate the existence of Imam al-Mahdi as a fable and a fabrication. This is not me, this is Maulana Imam al-Kadhim saying. حتى يرجع عن هذا الأمر من كان يقول به. The same people who used to advocate the belief of the Mahdi are going to be the same ones to reject the existence of the Mahdi. This is before the Dhuhur. Same people who were saying, Allahumma kulli waliyika al-faraj, Ya Habibi, Ya Mahdi. These are fabrications, these are tales, these are innovations. What? This is not something hard to believe. Habibi, this is not something hard to believe. And we see it every day in our communities. Established facts within our deen. Every now and then you have a Fulan and a Fulan bin Fulan who comes and tries to discount established aspects of our deen. Negate this didn't happen, that didn't happen, mu'jizat didn't happen, wa kada and kada and kada. What's different? What is there to stop them in believing in the Mahdi? Come and they take you. Yeah, you're an educated professional. Might. Have you ever seen somebody live for more than 1400 years? Is it medically even ever proven? Nabi Yusuf warned the people of a tragedy that is coming. Imam al-Kadhim warned us of a tragedy that is coming. And like this, Ya Ahibai, if you were to read Surah Al-Yusuf, it is as if you will see Surah Al-Yusuf is a reflection of the seerah of Imam al-Kadhim. You see the Yusuf of Ali Muhammad inside of Surah Al-Yusuf. And inshallah, our time is almost over, but we have a Masa'ib. To enter into the Masa'ib, Ahibai. Nabi Yusuf's imprisonment in comparison to Imam al-Kadhim was less intense. Bila shakkin wala rayb. But despite this, Ya'qub wept over Yusuf until he went blind. If Ya'qub weeps until he loses his eyesight for Yusuf, what should you and I do for Musa al-Kadhim, whose imprisonment cannot even be compared in intensity to Yusuf? Allahu Akbar. How should we act for Imam al-Husayn? Which is why the narrations mention that Harun al-Abbasi was not able to withstand the presence and the existence of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim anymore. For on a night like this, they plotted to administer poison to Imam al-Kadhim. The narrations mention that the intensity of the poison was such that as soon as Imam al-Kadhim ingested the food, his complexion began to change from red towards green. The Imam was not able to move his body, and he lay down on the ground crying out. He lay down on the ground crying out to Allah, saying, "O my Lord, you are witness for the persecution that I have endured." Allah. In a miraculous way, Imam al-Rida comes from Medina towards the prison of Baghdad, because only a ma'asum can bury another ma'asum. Imam al-Kadhim gives him the final wasiyah. The narrations mention the intensity of the poison was such Towards the final moments of his life, Imam al-Kadhim was seeking out for water. The Imam was so thirsty due to the effect of the poison, but there is no one there to quench his thirst. Allah. And it is as if Imam al-Kadhim is sharing in the grief and the pains of Karbala. When the children cried out, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, and here you have Imam al-Kadhim without any water. He turned his face towards the right and then towards the left. The narrations mention that the impact of the poison began to take its toll. Imam al-Kadhim straightened his legs. He straightened his hands facing the Qibla. The sweat of death began to pour down the forehead of Imam al-Kadhim. These are the final moments until the ruh left the body of Imam al-Kadhim wa imama wa kadhima. Allah, Allah, the body of Imam al-Kadhim in the prison, lifeless. When Harun came and asked the prison guards, come and tell us what is the condition of Musa ibn Ja'far, it was verified that the Imam has passed away. Harun then said, take the janazah of Musa ibn Ja'far on the bridge of Baghdad. The narrations mention that 4 people carried the body of Imam al-Kadhim. This Imam, lifeless body, his hands and his legs were still shackled. In the ziyarah of Imam al-Kadhim we read, Salam on the one whose legs were chained with weights in a manner that was so tight that the bone in the leg was crushed. Allahu Akbar. Imam al-Kadhim's shin bones were crushed due to the intensity of the chains and the weight. They came and they threw the body of Imam al-Kadhim on the bridge of Baghdad. The Zalim calls out, this is the Imam of the Rafidah. This is the Imam of those rejectors who believe that they have ilmul ghaib. The historians mention that the body of Imam al-Kadhim on the bridge, and every time the gods of Harun would pass by, they would kick the body of Imam al-Kadhim. Waliullah, this is Kadhim al-Gharib, the Gharib of Baghdad. His body without a ghusl and kafan for 3 days under the sun. Wa Imam. The body of the state of the body of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn towards Sham Ghariba. When they have killed Imam al-Husayn, his body is lying in the Katlaga. His body is lying in the Katlaga. This is just around the time of Sham Ghariban. When they killed Imam al-Husayn, they came to loot the possessions from the body of Imam al-Husayn. One of the enemies saw the amama of Imam al-Husayn, he took the amama. Another one saw the shirt of Imam al-Husayn, he took the shirt. Another one saw the slipper, they took the slipper of Imam al-Husayn. Or that you raid the possessions from a big. I came to the body of Imam al-Husayn. I saw there is nothing remaining to loot. So I felt sad that I've missed out on this opportunity. But then says I was going to walk away. But then I looked one more time and said I saw there was a ring on the finger of Abbas. And I tried to tell. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. مات من حسين، مات من كاظم.